Well, we have joining us now, he's taking a look at the growing outrage over electronic transmission of results controversy. We have Rotimi Akapo. He's a partner and head Telecommunications, Media and Technology Practice Group. He's joining us from our Lagos studio. Good to have you on Newsnight tonight. Well, Nigeria has been, of course, digitizing the voting process for over 12 years now, since 2011. But the political class, especially the Nigerian Senate, believes that Nigeria may not be ripe enough to fully deploy technology as far as e-transmission of election results is concerned. Where do you stand on this? Do you believe that we're not ready, or we can still deploy technology fully in our election results and indeed the processes?
Okay, thank you very much for having me. I think that to expect that we would have a 100% ready system for the deployment of technology tools for electoral process, I think we would never use technology. I hear that some of the reasons that are being given currently is around broadband coverage and all that. My understanding is that 90% of Nigeria is currently has network coverage. And I think that if we're going to be serious about doing this, we should not be using technology as an excuse. I think we should be talking more about how we design the process to accommodate the use of technology in our electoral process. I think the main issue here is around transmission of election results. We're not even talking about the entire process itself being subjected to the use of technology. Transmission is, I believe, towards the end of the process itself. What should be focused on is not whether or not we have broadband coverage, because my understanding, even as a lawyer, is that we don't even need heavy broadband pipes to deliver election results. It doesn't have to be broadband heavy. Election results can be transmitted with minimal broadband. So I think, when people use infrastructure as a reason for not deploying it, I think what we have now is sufficient for us to start. We just need to have the necessary legal framework in place to be able to do it.
Okay, all right. I think electronic transmission is not even the issue here, because it exists and we've been doing that. And the contention now is making it real time and mandatory. But let me ask you, you're the IT guy. I've heard people argue that even in areas where there are no network coverage, you can upload, and then when you do step into areas with coverage, it then can be uploaded. But as the IT person, I'm asking you, do you think this approach is even reliable? Will that also improve confidence in the electoral process, that at one point you have pressed upload, it doesn't, but then at a coverage area, it does upload? Is that something we can do?
Okay. So I'm not an IT person. I'm a lawyer that's been doing telecoms and technology for the last 20 years.
Oh, great.
Yes.
I apologize for that.
So I have a bit of understanding of how this works.
Great. Great then.
Thank you.
Great.
So I understand a bit about how this works. Yeah. So, so it is possible, because what's supposed to happen is we're talking about transmission, right? And transmission deals, I think, around connectivity. When people raise that point of not being able to do real time, they're talking about connectivity. Now, connectivity, as I said, across Nigeria has 19% coverage. So we're talking about 10% nationwide that does not have coverage at all. So if we're talking about digitally capturing the results and then uploading, and then when you get to where there's connectivity, it is then transmitted to the server. I think that's what people are saying. We do it every day. On our phones, we get videos every day. And some of those videos don't download immediately. Sometimes we set our phones for it to download immediately. And then when we get to areas where there's connectivity, the video downloads. It's the same principle. Now, I think what you are referring to is a matter of trust. Yeah. Do we trust the process? And this can be taken care of by design. If the system itself is designed with the necessary firewalls, with the necessary safeguards, then it is possible. I mean, it's all about the processes being in place and the systems being put in place. There's no system that is infallible, right? But it is how we design it so as to mitigate some of those risks that we identify. I think that is what is critical.
So what would you say are the necessary safeguards as far as technology is concerned? I mean, you said it's not fail-proof, it's not 100% fail-proof. What are the guardrails that we can deploy around technology to make it even, more strengthened and, of course, engender trust, which is very fundamental in the process?
Okay, I think one of the first things that we need to do for trust to be engendered in the entire process, the legal framework itself needs to be very clear. There needs to be no ambiguity about the ability of the electoral umpire to be able to adopt technology, right? It needs to be clear. Now, the eggheads themselves, they know the specifics to do. What to put in place to make this happen. But the legal foundation must be there. I think a lot of the issues that we have right now is around whether or not this can be done or it cannot be done. But in terms of the technology is available. The wonderful thing about these technology tools is that it leaves trails. It can be audited. Now, if anybody tampers with anything on the system, you would know at what point that tampering occurred, or from which system that tampering happened, or who is responsible for tampering it. Those are the kind of designs that will need to be inserted into the systems when it is being designed. So one thing is to have the framework in place. Another thing is in the design process itself for all these guardrails to be put up. And I think that is what is critical for us to have trust in whatever is deployed for the electoral process.
Okay, so now that I understand that you're a lawyer in tech space, let me ask you, this debate on it being mandatory and real time, there are also arguments of people who say, should the law be amended, because we do have a process that is not concluded, should it then be made mandatory, and the INEC official on duty is not able to make that happen because of structural challenges that we have? What are the implications, of that for such an official and the entire process? I mean, the legality of it and the consequences of the entire process in the end.
Okay, so I'm of the firm opinion that electrical transmission should be in the law as a matter of default. So that's the takeoff point. It's always the takeoff point. And then every other thing that happens after would be exceptions. So let's say the takeoff point is that there must be a electrical transmission, and then there will be exceptions for instances where it is impracticable, which is one of the instances that we mentioned. So there's no connectivity in that particular area. That would be an exception. But then those exceptions must be clearly spelled out. And we've been talking about discretion before. Even in the legal system, when judges exercise discretion, there are rules around how they can exercise that discretion. So if a polling unit officer, for example, says that it is impossible for him to transmit real time, the rules around coming to that conclusion must be clear, so that he is properly guided. It is not left to his discretion as to whether he is able to formally transmit or upload at that point. The rules must be made clear. And clearly, the electoral laws too must provide sanctions for that to happen. I think that is what is currently missing in our electoral laws, because when these things happen, when people claim or they try to hide behind technology, there is no consequence for such positions that are taken. So the process itself needs to be clear. And I keep going back to how we design it, how we design the process of transmitting electronically. Everything must be clearly stated out, because as a lawyer, what I try to do is avoid ambiguity. Once there's ambiguity, it gives people an opportunity not to be transparent about what they're doing. And what you are looking for is, from the polling units up to the server level, there must be transparency. The process itself must be one that is easily auditable, so that when somebody goes and checks, they will know where the fault lies, who dropped the ball, and who did comply with the law.
Absolutely. Rotimi Akapo is a partner and head of Telecommunications, Media and Tech Practice Group. Thank you very much for joining us, and of course your insights on Newsnight tonight.